All right. Today I have Sean the Run Bum Blanton on, talking about himself and some of his races that he does. So, Sean, if you want to give a brief introduction to yourself and like explain to people who exactly is Sean Michael and the Run Bum guy.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on. It's, as you know, I've been race directing for over a decade now. I've been running trail and ultra running races for over a decade and a half. I love this stuff. I eat, breathe, and sleep trail running, ultra running, just exercise, trying to mentor people, trying to help change people's lives. I think that started out initially with just trying to encourage people. And then for me, the natural progression as I got older was I started race directing. I had no idea where that would go. And it's led to me now having 10 events plus or minus every year. We're in year 12, I believe, of these races, some of them. And it's just been one wild ride. I've run over 300 ultra marathons. I have the fastest time for the 1100 8 mile Florida Trail. All of that really means nothing. It's just stuff that was like really fun at the time. I really enjoyed doing. I love all this stuff and I continue to do it. I want to run for forever. I also want to race direct for forever. I also want to continue to do trail work how I do it. I as I progressed as a race director and as I've gotten older, I'm 37 now. I started race directing when I was in my mid 20s. Started ultra running when I was 21, which was kind of interesting at the time. There weren't that many people, but now I look at kind of leaving everything better and a legacy, and I really focus mainly on giving back in the sense of like trail work. Yeah, okay, we donate money to, the trail organizations and stuff like that, which helps a little bit. But really, what helps is getting out there and boots on the ground, getting dirty. I'm a B U.S. Forest Service B certified chain sawyer. Which means I can take anybody, go with me, and cut trees off trails. I do a lot of that. I do about 250 hours a year, depending on how my year's going. And then with Run Bum Races, which I started and own, and I design all the race courses on as something that I want to run. But with that, with my company, I've been able to not only personally give a lot of trail work and money back, but also every year we end up hitting about 500 to 750 hours, tool in hand hours that we give back by clearing the trails that we use and even stuff that we don't use. So that's kind of where I'm at now in my career, if you will.
You're obviously a very busy man. Like you said, you spend so much time volunteering, race directing, just trying to stay in shape, like, and your other hobbies, because I know you're paraglide and stuff like that. It's just it must be a real juggle to like, hey, what do I want to do today? What do I have to get done today? Type atmosphere like with you. So what do you look for? Like, since you said you've done a couple hundred trail races now, um, what do you look for in a race that you want to do? Like, what's your favorite one that you've ever done?
So that's a great question. So I'll answer that like this. So I think over the years, my favorite races have kind of changed. I don't have a singular favorite race. Um, I have to say, shout out to all the PA people. I would say Heiner Trail Challenge, so Heiner 25K is honestly one of my favorite races in the world. Definitely top two or three. That's a sub ultra distance. I really like that. Shut in race in Asheville is like an 18-mile point to point race. I'm running that again. I'm in terrible shape, but I'm excited to go jog it. It's a great race. It's a hill climb, a net uphill. That's a really cool race. As far as ultra marathons go, oh man, it's like I've run so many things. You know, I would say Mont Blanc 90K is really awesome. There's a lot of races in the Alps that I've run. I've probably run like 40 ultras in the Alps that I really, really like. But the majority of the ones that were my favorite, guess what? Ironman UTMB has bought them out. And I'm not saying they're the bad guy or anything like that, but when they buy and take over a race, their goal is to grow it and get it bigger, obviously to make money while still providing a good and a fun event. And for me, when I go to a race in the Alps that has 4,000 people in it, even UTMB, it's a bit overwhelming. A lot of the small time races that I ran, well, small-ish time races, or maybe when I ran them, they were, are now like so big that it's not as fun to run. So I don't know. There's a lot of races over there I like. I love some races in Canada. Uh, there's a couple. Frosty 50K is really, really cool. That's actually coming up in like a week or so up in British Columbia. That's super awesome. So yeah, I have like a ton of races all over the Southeast. I really like Mystery Mountain Marathon. That's a fun race. Honestly, I would say of all the races that I run in the Southeast that aren't mine, because I'm trying to be, not include that, but I really love Mountain Mist 50K. I think that's one of the best 50Ks. Chiaha 50K is epic as well. That's more mountainous than Mountain Mist. So if you guys have never made it down the Southeast, come check out my races for sure. But if you're not going to run those, check out Chiaha and Mountain Mist are really, really badass races.
What is there one that you haven't done yet that's on your radar that you would love to do if time permits?
So that is another great question, but it's kind of funny to me because I've pretty much done every race I've ever wanted to run. Like I dove full in trail running addiction, you know, not buying new clothing, uh, driving around beater cars, sleeping in my car. That's how I got the name Run Bums, like sleeping in my car and staying with people, before running all these races all over the world. But I think that, well, actually, there's probably two races that I still want to run that I haven't run. One of those is there's a set of races on Réunion Island. Réunion is a French island. I think it was a former French territory. Now I think they're independent. This is out in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar. They have a 100 miler, which I'm not really a 100-mile guy. I love crewing, directing, supporting, running aid stations, cheering people on, that kind of stuff for hundreds. I've done one 100-mile race. It was UTMB. It was a great time. They do a great race, but it just is not for me. I like, kind of going all day. I can do that, but I want to go to sleep. I need my beauty sleep. I mean, look at me. But there's a race called Diagonal de Fou or de Faux. I don't know how you say it. It's French. And they have, it's called Grand Raid Reunion. It's a series of like 3 or 4 races over this. It's like if Hawaii was more desolate and French and in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that's it. So if I flew there from where I live in Atlanta to try to go to Reunion Island, it would take 24 hours to get there because I have to go through like Paris, then to another island, Mauritius, and then to Reunion. So it's kind of crazy. And anyone I've ever talked to that's run it, not many Americans know about it or even go to it. They're like, it's so crazy. It's hot and humid, for an island, of course, but it's a lot of really uneven stairs, just aggressive climbing, just like straight out of the ocean, straight up, epic views. People are super nice, and you have that island vibe, but it's French. So think about it. I've spent a lot of time in the South Pacific. I've been to some French colonized places like French Polynesia, and these places are weird. It's like an island vibe, island looking people, but they've got a baguette sticking out of their backpack on their bicycle. So that's kind of the vibe I get there. I've always wanted to go do that. It's like, I don't want to say it's in October. So maybe next year. Yeah.
All right. One other thing talking about your racing is what is your, I don't want to say like greatest accomplishment, but the race you're the most proud of having finished or achieved? It doesn't necessarily mean you won, but like maybe it was your FKT, or was there like one specific race you're like, man, I really think I did like the best or like most proud of finishing this race?
Okay. So like, I don't know, for instance, like I just throw this out here. If people don't know who I am or whatever, I'm just some guy who runs, so I'm no better or worse than anybody. I used to run on the La Sportiva mountain running team for 3 or 4 years. I took stuff way more serious than I do now. I I'm one of the few people I feel like I can go out and I can all out race a race, ultra 5 mile or 15 mile, whatever it is, mountain race, five, will just, all out effort. But I can also go out there and just be dead last. I have no problem do that. Like, it's a good thing, I think, for ego check is letting people pass you. So, but there were a lot of races, still are a lot of races that I go all out. I would say I've won a fair amount of races, and I can say this like where I fall as a runner is I'm not an elite runner. I've never been an elite runner. I will never be an elite runner. Running is not the number one priority in my life. Happiness is, and but I would say that like I'm a top 10% or top 1% runner on a lot of races. Usually not ultras though, and so when I've won ultra marathons or done really well, I'm kind of like I feel like, and even setting the fastest known time for the Florida Trail, I messed up a couple times on that trail. I should have gone under 20 days. I did 22 days and change. I should have trained better, whatever. I've never really been happy with any of the result, fully happy with any result that I've ever had. Cause I'm like, you're just touching it's just the tip of the iceberg. The only result that I can tell you that I could not have gone any harder, any better. I could have trained harder. But it was probably 7, 8 years ago. I was racing my best friend, Mitch Pless. We were good buddies. He's a hell of a runner, and we were racing at this race called Mystery Mountain Marathon in North Georgia. It's like in October. It's probably more like 28 miles. It's got 7, 8 thousand feet of climbing, so it's a brutal race, and we were racing all out the whole race. Not many people do it. It might be like 100, 125 people that show up for that in the 12 miler they do, maybe slightly more, but it's not really a big race. It's just right, as I say. But the whole race, we were just like, I couldn't like go any faster. I get to an aid station, they'd be like, hey man, he's a minute and a half in front of you. I get to the next aid station, they're like, oh man, he's 45 seconds in front of you. So it's like his strengths, like he would pull on me, then my strengths I would pull back. And ultimately at the end of the race, we talked after he got me, I was second place, which is funny. Like to a lot of people, I feel like it's like, wow, you feel like your best race you ever had, you're second place. It's like, absolutely, because competition brings the best out of you. I'd rather be 30th place against a bunch of people that are just badass runners and are way faster and place well in that than winning something when no one's there. So that was, and I'll never forget that time. And the funny thing about it, like all of the races we do, whether we're first, second, third, last, in the middle, whatever, we PR, we don't, none of that means anything to anyone else other than us, so it's like it's a total selfish sport. And I think it's funny. It's like you just every weekend or whenever you race, it's kind of like, run what you got, like smoke them if you got them.
Yeah, I sort of get caught up in that myself. Is a lot of races I do, let's just say when I win, like I'm not happy with my results. I'm more happy when I get that battle back and forth with somebody, and like you said, like with like Heiner, where the talent level in PA just like comes out and drones up there, and like me finishing in like 30th place in like the 50K sort of makes me more happy than finishing like first in a local 5K. Like I like that competition, and then like you're touching on the me versus me aspect of racing like a course. Like it's sort of like a golf. Like you never really win at golf, and you really never win at running either. It's you versus you on that course on that specific day.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I
Yeah,
gotta take
it's
this hat off. This
sweating.
it's like 80 some degrees up here in PA, and I'm wearing this beanie. I was trying to like support your Grayson Highlands, but it just
Hardcore.
it's just yeah, I'm starting to sweat in here, even in my house with the fan on. So, um, so if you want to like explain a little bit more, you touched on it already, like the Run Bum Tour concept idea.
Yeah, for sure. So I won't talk too much of how the company, and I hate using that word company. It's literally me and like six of my friends that help me out, my parents. And if she makes an appearance here in a second, Jade, the party wiener dog, who's our mascot. She's this little tiny dachshund. And we're just putting on races and trying to grow the community and really just, doing good vibe stuff, I guess, with trail racing. And we know what we like, we know what we don't like. But a long time ago, I kind of got bummed out. I would travel all over. Like I said before, I would sleep on couches, people's floors, share, sleep in a rental car, whatever it was, to go do races from California to the out, like just all sorts of craziness. Blew all my money on that. Didn't save a dime. But and I don't regret it at all. My life has been about not playing it safe in the sense of not like, oh man, I'm gonna go smoke meth and base jump per se, but it's like, hey man, I skydive, I paraglide, I am very safe with both of those. Those are both very safe sports, as is ultra running. It's as safe as you want to make it. So I try to do the more extreme sports, but in the safest manner possible. And for a very long time in my teens, my early 20s, I was very, very, very depressed. I just wasn't happy. I don't know why. I was no victim of anything like, oh my God, my dad beat me. No, my dad's amazing. My parents are amazing. But I didn't lose. I lost a couple friends I wasn't super close with. So I didn't have any hard rock bottom moment in my life. I just was not happy. And I don't know what it was. One day I woke up and was just like, hey man, this is BS. You got to sit there. You got to stop sitting there being the victim, playing the victim. And you got to, like, no one's going to pull you out of this other than you, period. And I had this nothing. It was just a Tuesday. I woke up and was just like, hey, stop doing that. There was no, I didn't wake up with a needle in my arm. I wasn't doing hair. It wasn't anything like that, which I hope that is a wake up call to people, is that people think that, oh, when my life gets bad enough, maybe in the back of their head, that all of a sudden you're going to be forced to have a radical change. The answer is forced. You heard it right there. It's like, nobody's going to force you to do anything, most likely, right? You're going to have to do everything on your own. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of business and motivational people. And it's all like, hey, man, you've got to pick yourself up. There is no short, there's no shorting hard work to get success, period. People always want shortcuts and stuff like that. All I can offer is motivation. And that's kind of what happened. Was I started running, not knowing what I was doing. At the time I was fighting Muay Thai, which is like Thai kickboxing. I went to Thailand, trained for that, had a fight. It was really cool, and got more into running. I've always run because I've always played soccer, and I've always tried to motivate people. Anytime I've ever run a race, I always thank every volunteer. And if I missed somebody, then I messed up, and if I did, I didn't mean to, so I always try to thank everybody, and that's just who I am. And I want to inspire other people to live like that, to test boundaries. I see a lot of people sending messages, whether it's subconsciously that they're doing this or consciously, but it's like, hey, do you think I could do this? It's like people need to know they can do something before they do it. My business, I went on the biggest, leap of faith multiple times over for years, floating money around, trying to make these races work. They finally took off 5-6 years ago to the point where I could actually make a living from it and not have to do a bunch of side hustle and jobs and stuff like that. And I'm blessed for that. But that's kind of how it all started, was with that mentality. And I would go run these races other places. And I got really upset because, when you're running a 50K, a 50-mile race, whatever it is, you're somewhere else. Like, a lot of times you're at some point, maybe not the whole time, you're going to talk to somebody, unless you're like the top 5 people, you're all business. We all know ultras are like a mullet. It's business up front, party in the back. We say this, we know this. And, the people who are mid pack, and back of the pack, they're typically talking, especially mid pack people, which is like 80% of the race. They're having a good time. They're talking to people, and when I would talk to these people out west, they're like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, Atlanta. And they'd be like, oh, you guys don't have real mountains out there, and it's like, yeah, I know you hear that people say all the time. It's like, what bullshit, like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And that, to me, like, when I was younger, we develop as people, we grow as people. Hopefully, we grow. I certainly have, for the better. I'd like to think, but I had a chip on my shoulder. I was a young punk. I was pissed off, and and I go, you know what? Screw these people. I'm going to put on a race and I'm going to show these folks what the East Coast is about. Because North Georgia Mountains, that's where I used to go to train to run every single race that I would run. Where we do Georgia Death Race, which was inherently my first race ever, which is now in year 11. We're sold out. It's a Western States qualifier. We got 480 people. It's nuts. That's its own animal we can talk about later if we want. But that was the first race. And the only reason I put on that race was to basically say, screw you, West Coast. We got real mountains. And so, like, we're going to make this really hard. And it's funny because that race has got a lot of people from the West Coast now coming to run it. And, a bunch of people DNF, oh, I had no idea mountains were this tough. Now, let me be just completely frank here. West Coast is awesome. All of America is awesome. There's so many awesome places wherever you're running trails. That's awesome. I wish I could see it all. I am born and raised in the South, all 37 years in Atlanta. I love Appalachia. I love our mountains. I love sharing that with people. I love exploring and finding new places for races. But man, from Maine down to Florida, dude, we got some just such diversity and just awesome stuff. You got west, like I miss the greenery. I love it because you get the desert, you get these high areas, the alpine areas. It's epic, right? But I will take my North Georgia mountains and North Carolina mountains all day over West Coast, and that may be people, that's controversial, sure, but that's just preference. I love it, and I love going out there. I've spent a lot of time in Utah and Colorado and California and Oregon and Washington State and Kentucky. Like I love it all, right? So that kind of started with GDR the first year, and that's why I put on a race. And I tell people, I say every race that I do, in a weird way, and this is how I started race directing the first couple years, is I say this race is an exaggerated extension of like my existence or the human psyche. Like Georgia Death Race is the dark, the angry, the revengeful side, right? Whereas something like Grayson Highlands is the fun, it's like you get to be a kid, explore, it's like all these happy feelings and views and stuff like, and that's, so every race we do is not the same feel. It's completely different. And we want that. I want that. So that's a long roundabout answer, but that's kind of, how I started, how I do races. And now I just chase scenery. I have so many, we've had a lot of races that I've retired that it's just they weren't that great, or maybe there wasn't enough parking, or it's just I want to direct a race that I want to run. So if I do a race a couple of times that I direct, and I'm kind of like, this isn't really the vibe I'm getting, or people aren't really receiving it like I want. Like I'm not doing this just to make money. Like I'm doing this because I'm creating an experience, and I want to create a community around that experience.
I, I agree with you wholeheartedly because right now I'm only doing like a couple like 5Ks like for some fire companies and stuff like that. But I tell people when I direct a race, like the same thing that you just said, is I want to give people an experience. Because like when I do like other races and I go to them, we'll say whether it's a 5K, a half, or a full, if I'm not like enjoying the race itself, I'm not going back. So
Right.
like with the fire company ones, the 5Ks, like I give up like blow up like I do a Festivus one. It's like Seinfeld Festivus.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
like
love it.
I blow up, like a big Festivus pool. I have a couple Festivus pools, and I get pictures with George's dad. I forget his name offhand, but like I give people an experience, and that brings people back year
Right.
after year. And I think that's what like just only having done one race that you have, but like seeing the videos and talking to other people that done races, like you give them an experience, which not only grows the brand, but it makes people want to come back and have that same experience that people talk about. So I think you do a really good job of that. Um, so how do you actually design a course and come up with a location because since you have races in all kinds of different states, to me it would be kind of hard logistically, like coming up with like a design and figure out where to exactly have one.
So I be honest, like my art is course design. I'm gonna say probably the cockiest thing ever, but this is the you asked me earlier. It's like, oh, what was the best race? I, for me, running, myself was whatever. For me, designing courses, like that's what I'm proud of. I think for me though, I don't necessarily pick like I don't go in with the mentality of like, man, I'm gonna come up with a badass 50K or I'm gonna do 100-mile event. It's like I just explore a lot and then not necessarily where I'm looking for a race course because that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to see all the things, all the views, all the places on my feet, you know? Um, and I think that kind of the distance then kind of just comes from, you know, what's available. You know what I mean? I run a lot of races, or I've run a lot of races that I just absolutely loved, like maybe 70% of it. You run enough races where you're like, man, this is really awesome. And then maybe at the finish line or somewhere in there, they go chasing mileage and it's stupid. It sucks. It like ruins the race. Or like, I'm going to do something just to be hard, And it's like, not everybody wants to run the hardest thing possible. Not everybody wants to do 100 miles, and it's like, and that's my mentality is just keep it fun, keep it scenic. Like, don't keep anything forced. I hate loops. I do not like out and backs. Um, like we have some races that have out and back elements in them, um, but they're planned as part of it. Like sometimes in a longer distance race, especially if you're running 100 miles, you do a 5 mile out and back section. Oh my God, it's awesome. You get to see somebody. It's motivating. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're running a 10-mile race, you don't need to be hitting out and backs or doing loops. Right. So that's kind of my mentality. And there's so many, I mean, it's like I was saying, I was comparing designing courses to art, and that sounds really weird, but it's true. It's my art. It's what a lot of people do is like therapy, art therapy. They're like, oh, I need to sing, I need to paint, or whatever. For me, I just like go look at all trails or guide a GPS and just start making routes. Like I have 7 or 8 routes up in Pennsylvania. I've even gone up there and explored some of this stuff near like Jim Thorpe and stuff. And we were going to try to do like 100-mile race up there, 200-mile, and it's like, we looked at doing stuff and maybe some, shorter distance stuff, which I'd love to have some in PA, but the reality is, there's a ton of races up there and I don't live up there. So, yeah, there's a lot of race courses that have never seen the light of day. So, and it's funny every now and then I'll have something that like, and I save it all, right. It's like, 7, 8 years ago, I designed a course and it's like, that's not how I design something now. Because I'm progressing and making things flow better. And a lot of times I'll build a race course and we'll have the race for a year, 2 years. I think for the longest time, it's like you run Heiner. I mean, granted, they've had to make some recent changes, but it's been the same route for a while, right? I've had a lot of my races, I end up like tweaking the routes like mildly. Like you'll do 80% the same thing, but maybe I do it in a slightly different order, or maybe this year you go a little further out where you do a different loop or something like that. Cause I think that's better. And then I'm really big on asking people like, what'd you think about that? Like you ran this last year. Did you like that? Did you notice it? Was it too much vert? Was it not enough? Like, cause at the end of the day, I'm designing something for people to have fun. Like I said, I'm not designing something for people to do the hardest thing possible. I have that. It's Georgia Death Race. So that's kind of where I design now. And that's why I have events from Central Florida all the way up to Southern Virginia, because there's just so many different things to see. And we kind of chase the fall um, south and we chase the spring north, which is kind of cool.
Now, I will say with like I said, I'm going to use Grayson Highlands. I got the shirt on. First off,
Yeah.
before we get into Grayson Highlands, now was the gray T-shirt like a yearly thing because it's Grayson? Like, was it a play on words, or would just happen to be like this year's shirt color?
It just happened to be that year's shirt, and it's funny because right now we're redoing all of the logos for our races, um, and I'm really excited about that. That's going to look super rad. Grayson is one of the next ones we're doing, so we were kind of changing everything every year. I've never really been super like, to be honest, like I've never been super stoked on any of our logos. There's like one or two that I was like, oh, I really like that. Like, so like I'm paying people a bunch of money now to give us new logos. Like, hey, here's my idea. Because most of our logos, and this is a funny story, is
Yeah,
I
I'll
can't
show this one
draw.
again.
Yeah. And I really like that one. So that's my favorite Grayson one that we've had. And it's funny because every 90% of the logos we've ever had, I can't draw. Like it's like kindergarten. I mean, it's terrible. It's like I draw how I write, which is like worse than a doctor. So, oh, I wish I had this. I just made a logo really that's going to be one of our medals. So like I designed the medals. But what I do is like I'll take like some paper and I'll start just drawing and looking on the internet. I might like, oh, Florida. I'll Google the state of Florida and just kind of try to get ideas, and then I'll draw stuff and I send it to my graphic design guy, who literally they print out some of them and they're framed in their office because they're like, dude, look, a child drew this, and they have like they'll have the before, which is what I drew, and then their logo like yours. Like, I wish I still had that somewhere, but I drew out that with like the pony, and it looked like a lizard. It was so bad, dude. Oh my god, so bad. Yeah, so like I'll come up with all that stuff and then kind of design that way. And we try to change this stuff every year, just to have different, because a lot we straight up we get 40% of the people that run each race run other races or more. So it's like we're getting a really high turnover. So people run in the same race and they want a different shirt.
Yeah, I know. Like, getting back to the course design a little bit, um, like I did the 50 miler Grayson Highlands this year, and what I tell people is the way you designed the course in that like first 8 to 10 mile range was just magnificent. Like you were talking about like artistry and stuff like that. You could not ask for a better like first 8 to 10 mile race. I never experienced anything like that before. Like I got there at the top, like where the horse, like where you first start to see the horses as the sun comes up. I think I was third or fourth at the time, but just having that sun come up over those mountains, dude, it was just spectacular. I stopped and took pictures mid race. Like again, I'm third or fourth place at the time, stopping to take pictures because it was so beautiful, well designed in that first 8 to 10 mile range. I just it was just breath. Your photographer even got me. Um, she took pictures of me taking pictures because I just had to stop and do that.
I love that. And see, what people don't understand, like, oh man, we got this beautiful sunrise. So it's like I have planned for most races, like Grayson Highlands, Quest for the Crest, which is another epic race, Sky to Summit. Let's see what other race I do that. GDR as well. Um, Pretty much all the ultras I have it planned where you get it. Wild Florida, Forgotten Florida. I have it planned where you're at a very, like 90% of the people are at a very specific location for a sunrise, and that's part of it. That's like that's just, yeah, it's just like that to me adds to it. And it's like a speech, right? Or even a podcast, right? Abraham Lincoln, one of the best speech uh, folks of all time, if you will. He knew that people listen to you, like in the beginning they're very attentive, kind of lose them somewhere in the middle, and then at the end you get them back, right? So it's like, I know that if we're going to have anything that might be mundane or something that's not as many views or something that's going to be harder, it's like I want that to be kind of in the middle, right? And so like I'll kind of do that. Like Grayson 50 miler is the definition of that. Like the first 10 miles, 12 miles of that is like really freaking awesome. Middle's like pretty cool. You're just not in the high country, so it's like very different. It's like easier ish miles. And then at the end, you're back in the high country doing stuff, and you got those views back, even though it's like a little harder like towards the end. So it's like, I try to design things, and like half marathons different on that, but it's all the same kind of concept is of just kind of taking people through an experience, not just a race. It's like that makes me so happy you telling me that, because I want people to get to the point during every race we do to be like, to just stop and go, damn, that is beautiful, because that's why we're running that there. Because if we're just trying to run a half marathon or 50K, it's like, man, I could do that on the road or on a rails to trails. And it's like, there's a lot of races like that, and there's no knock on them. It's just, that's just not what we do. So, man, I appreciate it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely rode like a runner's high for miles after that. And then again, I forget what it would have been. We'll just call it like 35 range, like when we started seeing them again, and then like where we interact with people just coming to visit the state park for the day. Like
Right.
like the horses, like people don't understand. They are literally feet away from you. Like if they would let you touch them, you probably could. I wouldn't recommend it. Or
Yeah.
some of those steers, but I mean,
Yeah.
I will apologize a little bit because like I know like right after the race, like I was a little bit like I did bitch a little bit because like how it's open after like mile 20, like because the bushes are only like we'll say like 5, 6 feet tall because the temperatures
Okay.
went from like 30 to 70 degrees. And I
Oh
just
yeah.
had such a bad race that day, like after mile 20, because I just got like heat stroke and I'm battling, dipping my hat in. So I was just like, like that stretch, I had to like such a bad time. Not it had nothing to do with you. It was just I was just like the temperature and just getting overheated. I was just, man, this sucks so bad. But then once you hit the horses again, everything just like clicked back into place and it was like, thank God I got to see the horse. Like it picked me back up at the end.
Well, it's funny though that you say that, because like with the 50 miler, like I wish more people would do the 50 mile there, because I think that's like you see everything, just straight up, you see everything. There's maybe like a mile trail in the park that I would go see. Um, but the cool thing about Grayson Highlands, first of all, it's the highest race in Virginia. Run trail running, road running, any mountain biking, anything. There will never be a higher race than that, because that's like the highest permittable place that you can run to in Virginia. And point of that being is that in May, we do it first weekend in May, as you know, you will get most days, you will get all four seasons in one day. We've had it up there where it was snowing, like during the race. We've had flurries another time. We've had rain. You get heat if you get down low, because the high point is about 5,400 feet or so, plus or minus. And then, start finishes at 5,000 feet. So, that's Denver right there. So this is kind of a high altitude race, but you don't really realize it. Um,
Well,
and
I felt it.
yeah, you can feel it and people don't realize it. So like you'll be at like, probably it's probably 30% harder, and people don't realize that. So really you get over the first climb or two, because yeah, okay, you push through that and then you drop way down and you're between 2 and 4 and it's not bad. And then, like I said, towards the end of the race, you got to climb all the way back up to the park at 5,000 feet. And a lot of people forget about that. So it's like when you're lower down, a lot of the leaves are still down, on the ridge lines, even at 4,000 feet, which is nice because you can see stuff. You're not just in a green tunnel, stuff's blooming. Like it's pleasant. But a lot of people, especially being in PA, like all of a sudden in May, it's like you haven't had any hot days really, So it's like all of a sudden you come down a little further south and it can get warm. So it's kind of one of the, and I would never say it's like you're like, oh my God, 70 degrees. Like, dude, right now, 70 degrees sounds amazing. But when you're used to 40, 50, 60 degrees, and for 2 hours you might be down or 70, or even 65, it definitely gets a little warmer, for sure.
Yeah, that was like I said, it was more like that stretch. Like it was me because I was like in heat stroke. Like I'm thankful that there was like so much water on the course that day because I think it rained like a couple days beforehand. I'm literally bathing in every little like puddle and little like it was probably like streams of like urine from like the cows and like
Oh, I'm
stuff
sure.
like I'm just like I got to get cooled off and just get like, I'm hoping I was third at the time. I'm like, could somebody please pass me so I could like slow down and stop? But it just, I pushed through for like that 30, 35 miles of like heat stroke. And I'm like, thank God it's over. But I mean, but again, it was such an amazing experience. Like, I want to go back if I'm able to, like with work and stuff, just so I could see like the horses again and, like have a better like day myself, like running wise.
Yeah. Well, and it's awesome because we're I don't know, anybody listening, I don't know if they feel like coming down. We're doing a free fun run at Grayson Highlands September 23rd. It's a Saturday. It's kind of like all paces, all distances. We're basically just going to start, go up into the high country for 2 hours and just like come back and then hang out and go down to Galax, Virginia, which is like an hour down the road. One of our buddies, Paul Tilley, is having his birthday party. We're going to go basically take over a brewery. We got music. So, yeah, I love that area, man. I get to get up there a lot. So I'm very, and it's 5.5 hours north of where I live. So it's not like my backyard, but I love it, man. And I'll tell you, this is a really cool experience. I want to tell people about with Grayson Highlands. It has nothing to do with the race other than I was just up there. And this happens all the time. Is like the military with their F-16s or whatever we are now, F-34s. I don't know what F we're at yet anymore, but they come from, wherever they're coming in coastal Carolina or Virginia Beach or whatever. And dude, right over the start of our race, I'm like, what is that noise? It seems really loud. And it's kind of gets louder and louder and louder. And I look up and it's like literally the guy is mid barrel roll, like 200 feet above the tree line, just it's like literally that scene in the original Top Gun where they're in the tower and he's like, what is that? He buzzes the tower, he spills coffee all over himself. Me and my dad are there setting up stuff for the race. My dad goes, hell yeah. Like, that was awesome. And they do that like all the time, man. It's so rad.
Yeah, like speaking of like setting up races, what I noticed, not just like for Grayson with like my experience, but like at other races, like you set up like a nice um pre-race like photography session, and like you give out some like stickers and some gels and stuff beforehand. Like even like bib pickup, you're giving people an experience and not just, hey, come get this, see you later type deal. And you're very I guess user friendly. I don't know a better word to say, but user friendly. Like if you're there, like you actually engage with people coming and going. You're not just be like, hey, I'm not doing this. I gotta go. I gotta be got stuff to do. Like you actually engage one on one with people before and after.
Absolutely. I mean, like I'm an ultra runner putting on like trail and ultra runner putting on trail and ultra running races for other trail and ultra runners. Like we're not a company, like that's I'm not Walmart, I'm not Ironman, you know, I love this stuff. I love people. I always have. Um, I have this same like talking about this kind of a little bit of a sidebar, but I have an affinity for people that I feel that are just right there on the verge of like great things, but just need a little push. My goal in life is to be that person that starts the chain reaction in your life. Maybe our events too, maybe listening to my podcast, maybe reading the book that I'm writing, maybe like whatever it is, like wherever you need motivation, maybe you're looking for something, but you don't know what you're looking for. Like I want to help facilitate that. And I'm not saying come run bum races. I'm just saying push yourself. Not ultra marathons are not for everybody per se. Not everybody needs to run 100 miles, 50K. Just push yourself, get out there, try to do better and have goals. That's my whole thing. And so when I'm talking to people like before and after the race, I really try to do. I have a personal brand, right? Run Bum Races. I'm Run Bum. My Facebook. I'm Sean Michael. That's what all my friends called me growing up. That's my middle name was Sean Michael. It's super Irish. If you can't tell by all the freckles looking at me, my family calls me Sean Michael. So I am I'm a personal person. I love interacting and hearing people's stories. Like honestly, the biggest downside of these races getting so big and selling out and stuff is that I don't have the time to like sit down and talk to people. That's why I love going to Heiner, because I get to be on the other side of that. You know, I get to hang out with Craig and John Schaefer and all these people that make this event happen, and all the people that come from all over to run it. And I get to be one of the people that gets that experience, you know? So I want to give that to other people, and we're a community. It's not just come run an event or whatever. It's like, we want to support you. Like, people who are running 50 miles, 50K, we're either running to something or from something, or maybe a little bit of both. There's nothing wrong with that, you know? So like, I want people to feel welcome. You know, I want people to feel like they're a part of something. And it's not, hey, cool, you gave, like, you paid your money, like, come get your bib, get that, go run. All right, get out of here. You know, we're there, and I double up on work, and you know, don't get a lot of sleep just so I can try to be a lot of the packet pickup. You know, I'm not at all of it all the time. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, like flagging the courses and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. And with all my races, you pay the race entry. I give you free race photos. Scott Abshire, who's like one of my good friends and an ultra runner, he is our photographer, videographer, social media guy. He loves doing the pre-race portraits, and I love that, because you know, it's like, you no longer have to go to Walmart to get your portraits. You know, you can get them right there at the packet pickup for Run Bum races. So you know, that's definitely, and usually we only do that the night before. So I always recommend, it's like, if you have the ability to come the night before to get your packet, if we're doing that, come do it. Like, we'll usually take your photo.
Yeah, it's just a nice little touch. Um, like again, it's just like a memory that people want to have, and again, it brings more. I, it's a full circle. Like when I talk about this stuff, I always think it's like full circle. It's not only giving people a memory, it's also like promoting the race and getting the word out. Like people, like, you know, wanting to share their experience. We're like, hey, what was this photo, or where was this from? And then they start sharing their experience, and then people want to come and have that same experience. So to me, it's like a full circle. Every little detail that you put into like the different races just brings more people and gives more people that great experience as well. Um, I know I wanted to touch on, you just released, and I know you said you can't give out too much information. So whatever information or whatever you would like to say about your new race that you just sort of released the other day.
There is no such thing as Fight Club. No. So, all right. So the other day I kind of dropped this big bomb. It's called the Appalachian 200-mile foot race. Okay. I've been working on, where do I start? So it's somewhere in the Southeast. Okay. It's a point to point 200-mile race that will also include a point to point 100-mile race, which is how this all kind of started. So let's go back 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Yeah, it was about 6 years ago. I had this goal that I wanted to put on, again, the most epic point to point 100-mile race on the East Coast, and really what that is, no knock on anybody else. Really, I just wanted a really scenic mountain 100 in the Southeast, right? And there are some really cool races like Pinhoti, awesome Pinhoti 100. If you're anywhere, not even just the East Coast, go run that race. It's awesome, very well organized, great race, very doable, lots of fun. I basically volunteer there every other year if I can. I've been more recently trying to help with trail work, clear their trails for them. Super fun, because the Pinhoti Trail is an hour and 15-minute drive from where I live in Atlanta. It's actually closer to go there than it is to North Georgia. But with that being said, enough plugging that, is there's some awesome races, but there's not a lot of like true mountain races. Hellbender is a really cool 100-mile race, but it repeats a lot of the stuff on it. It's kind of more like a barbell a little bit, and it's a super rad route. But yeah, I've just been, even before that race, it was like 6 years ago, I was trying to put on this point to point 100. A lot of things, I got busy, whatever. Well, right before COVID, I went to get this race permitted that I called Shadows of the South. Okay, got it permitted. COVID happened. Fuck. So table that because people weren't really signing up for races. So 2020 goes by, 2021 goes by. 2022, we come out with this. We started to do this 100-mile point-to-point race. Now, what I never told people, other than the people that worked for me and with me, is that this was also year one, it was going to be a 100-mile race. Year two, it was going to be a 100 and a 200-mile race, both point to point. The original race route that I had for both of these is so awesome. It's not even funny. 3 states. We would go from like North Carolina to Georgia to South Carolina, and we were to run along the Chattooga River. Okay. It's a wild and scenic river, which means it's provided some protections and designations by guess who? Our home state president, of course, Jimmy Carter. I don't get into politics. Don't even know what he was about. Just know that he canoed down the Chattooga River like some class 4 or 5 rapids in a canoe, which is kind of cool. And that's how they sold him on, protecting this river. Now, with that being said, some crazy conservancy group came and then like complained that we were doing that, threatened to sue the Forest Service. And all of a sudden, like 2 weeks before our event, and next thing they're like, you can't put it on. So then I was able to change it to some crazy, terrible route, whatever. It was awful. It was a terrible route that was not even what I came up with. So not wanting to go against these people and have people picketing my races like they were trying to do, and they're like, scrutinizing us. I've been back looking for more race routes. Well, I've been doing other things. We've had other races. I've hired a lot of new folks to help out and work with Run Bum. And so it kind of took a back seat for a while. And a couple months back, we started revisiting this. About 8 months ago, we started revisiting again, and like, we're going to bring this back. I have a new route, and for the 100-mile Shadows of the South. Well, then I said, let's get rid of that name. I like Appalachian 200. I think that's just awesome. It's powerful. It stands alone. And I found this new route. There was a trail that I hadn't seen on some other maps, and I found it and talking with people, because I go explore all these areas, like literally like Central Florida, like to Southern Virginia. There's like not many trails other than wilderness areas that I have not been on, and not many Forest Service roads I have not driven, looking for events, exploring, doing what I do. And so, I had a couple trail organizations approach me, say, hey, we like the races that you do. Can you put on more? Because we need volunteers, we need money, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I'd love to. So that's kind of where this all started with. And it goes through a couple states, and is what I'll say. And it's not fully permitted yet, but I've been told that it's going to be. So we're going to have it April 2025, which is when our original Shadows of the South race was going. Why mid-April? Absolutely. We go above 5,000 feet a couple times, multiple times. In mid-April, just like you saw in Grayson Highlands, this is nearish to that area, we'll just say, because we're in the southeast, everything's nearish, right? But that time of year, yeah, down low it can be warmer, but it's like down low, it's spring. Up high, it's still winter. It's coming out of that. You've got all the views. I wanted ridge line running as much as possible. I wanted waterfalls. I wanted big mountain views. I wanted, small towns in the mountains. I wanted like the crew people to be able to have like a unparalleled and unique experience where they're seeing all sorts of cool stuff during this. I wanted there to be a river crossing. There's so many parameters that I had to this, and I've spent thousands of hours, like literally thousands of hours over the last 6 or 7 years trying to find that 100-mile course, and I found it. So we're just waiting on, permitting at this point. I'm going to try to open up the 100-miler only for 2024. We'll probably keep it small if that gets permitted at all. Maybe a last minute thing. If I have 20 people, I don't care. We're going to do that first year as an icebreaker with the landowners and get it done. Get some footage, just see what people think about it. I'm here to tell you, this is the most epic, most beautiful, scenic point-to-point 100-miler on the East Coast, period. I'm really excited about that. It means that I'll now be doing a lot more trail maintenance. We'll be giving a lot more money to. That'll be great. But really, somebody asked me, they're like, oh, like, well, we don't want a race that's, has other races permitted that's been used. And it's like only 15 miles of this 200-mile route and 100-mile route have ever been on another race ever. So the answer is most people don't even know where the heck this is, which makes me happy. So the logistics are wild. I'm excited about it. I just took my co-race director, Deanna, on a lot of it. Like the past 5 days, we've been driving all around, checking cell service, rechecking cell service, meeting with people. So I'm really excited. This is going to be a thing, the Appalachian 200, 100-mile race. Like, keep that on your radar. It's on Ultra Sign Up. Go check it out. Click the watch list. Follow that. It is worth traveling to. Bring your friends. Come enjoy the area. Stay 4 or 5 days and just have a hell of a vacation.
All right. I just like a couple more points. I think there's like two more that I wanted to touch on. Because you're big into volunteering and you've been touching on this here and there. What aspect of volunteering slash clearing the trail slash donating money to these different organizations do you like best? Like, is it just because you're like outside clearing the trails, or like what draws you into volunteering so much and giving up so much of your time?
Dude, 100%. Like, I don't have to think about that at all. So, number one, so years ago, I went to, I mean, I love, for me, it's like my gym, right? It's like I feel like a badass going up and down mountains, clearing chainsaws or clearing trees with chainsaws. Like, it's awesome. I'm certified with the Forest Service. I take a lot of people. We have a blast. I have, you know, $5,000-6,000 worth of like power tools that I don't let people run chainsaws, but you can run hedgers all day long. I love it. It's awesome. That's why I love Craig Fleming and the PA Trail Dogs. Dude, they do more trail work than I can ever try. Yeah, I mean, I can't even try to, do what they do. I mean, it's incredible. But, I our races are more remote. We don't have like a smaller community in the areas a lot of the times that we do race in. So we do. But years ago, I went on one of my first trail work days ever. And I joined a trail organization. So you have a lot of these trails. Like, I'll give you an example by like what we use, like the Benton McKay Trail, the Bartram Trail, the Florida Trail. You have these like associations now. The Florida Trail Association, that's a national scenic trail. It's federally backed. They get a lot of money allocated, but not as much as they need. So they rely heavily on donations and volunteer hours and stuff like that. But you join any of these organizations, they're all volunteer based mainly. They have very few paid positions, if any. And I go out on work day, and I think I was in my mid 20s, late 20s, and I was the youngest person there, easily by 30 years. Okay. And all these people are retired and doing all that stuff. And it's cool. And I mean, just call it is like these rad, cool, badass old folks that are out here lugging around gear, doing all the work, maintaining all the trails, because a lot of their generation grew up on hiking and going outside, where we've gotten away from that so much in America. It's so sad. I tell people all the time, you don't have to run, just get outside, go hike, go walk, whatever, go camp, do all that stuff, give back, right? And I remember saying to myself, it's like, and there's a couple of guys, I guess, who were like in their 70s and stuff. And I remember being like, saying to myself, like, what happens when this guy dies or he can't do trail work? Um, that's why I kept asking myself, like, if not me, then who? That was my next thing, is if not me, then who? And I ask myself all the time. It's like, I have this weird affliction where it's like, if I know a trail has like a bunch of bad stuff going on, like the trail bed's messed up, it's washing out, there's a bunch of trees down, it's overgrown, it's an affliction. Like, I have to go clear that, or else like I can't go to sleep at night. So like every now and then, like, I'll just wake up at 3 a.m. and be like, oh, I have to go up here. And I'll clear stuff even that's not on our course. I would say like 70% of the stuff we do is on our race courses, 30%, maybe a little more isn't. But yeah, hanging out and doing work with all these older people who are retired. It's like, I guess people just assume that whenever people get retired, there's going to be that steady group of people that come and they just keep passing the torch and keep picking up, the workload, but that's not true. So we need to get people in younger. I see, trail runners is the next generation of trail maintainers. We can go further, we can go faster. People just need to be taught what to do, and you know, a lot of the trail organizations, these hiking groups, is what they are. They're like, man, we'd love to see more runners out. You know, the problem is, you know, as most runners, you know, you're a little bit younger, but it's like people are still working. You know, you're not retired, so it's not required people do trail work. I always say it is much appreciated, and I love taking people out like on their first work day and giving them a taste, you know, and just go, hey man, like this is what it takes to do this. I mean, you know, if you look at something like Sky to Summit, you know, it's just a 50K, and in that 50K, there's like 20 miles of unique trail, more or less. Um, that 20 miles for a year probably takes 500 hours of trail maintenance just to kind of keep it maintained to like a passable level. If we wanted to repair everything to, you know, the highest standard possible and make it really nice and like Appalachian Trail quality, you know, you're looking at, it would be like 1,000 hours for the year. You know, we don't have that manpower. So donating money to some of the organizations that we do, like the Bartram Trail, the Blue Ridge Bartram Trail Conservancy, they're awesome. They basically use that money to pay for Youth Conservation Corps to come in and pay them a livable wage to come in for 5 days on, 2 days off, like a hitch, you know, like every so often. They concentrated on the most messed up areas, which sometimes are where our races are, sometimes it's not. Usually it's not. So yeah, I mean, it's all give back. So it's like if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I want to know how I can, you know, do trail work. I always tell people is whatever trail you run the most, um, contact the landowner and say you're interested in doing trail work. A lot of times they won't return your calls, like you know, so, you know, because people are busy, they have other things going on. It's like reach out to trail groups. If you're in Pennsylvania, reach out to Craig Fleming. PA Trail Dogs, they do a ton of work in Central PA. There's places everywhere. Reach out to me. I'm in the Southeast. Always, like pretty much any day midweek, I'm always wanting people to join me. There's a never-ending amount of trail work, and I just need people to help me. So that's why.
And it's not even being able to like run a chainsaw or bushwhacker. It's just, hey, picking that stick off the trail, moving it off to the side, or maybe
Yeah,
laying down that rock that somebody kicked up. Just like little things do add up to make the trail a little bit better for everybody else as well. Um, and I know I appreciate it. And like me, most of my volunteering's like through aid stations and stuff like at races. Um, I enjoy that aspect, like helping people get through like the suffering that we do in ultras and stuff like that. Um, it's actually really fun. Like at first I was like, I'm probably not gonna like it, but the more I do it, the more I actually enjoy it, just to watching people, I don't want to say suffer because they're not always suffering, but like just the enjoyment they have and just the relief that you can provide them at an aid station or like even trail maintenance and stuff like that. It just makes a huge difference in the trail community and the ultra running community in general. Um, so the
no,
last, oh, good.
no, I was gonna say I agree. I mean, I feel like running an aid station. If I could do that every one of my races, I would do that. You know, I would pay somebody to let me do that. I love it. You know, and trail maintenance and stuff. You know, with our races, like we don't really have to do it, but like I choose to do it. You know, and because I see a lot of people say like, oh, just we'll jump over the trees and stuff like that, and it's like that's a hardcore thought process. I can tell you right now, once you jump over 5 trees, like I'm over it. Like I don't want anybody to have to jump over any trees. And I think about like, what about the old guy with his daughter coming to hike on this? And it's like, what if he falls and gets hurt, or the safety aspect, or you know, somebody gets injured and they have to take an ATV down the trail. Now they can't get to that person because you know there's trees in the way. So like it all helps. And for me, I'm not clearing it for our race. I'm clearing it for everyone else. And I like the races being an excuse to do that. So there you go.
But yeah, because if you're jumping over trees, you never know what's on the other side. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, you see this big log where you clear it, and then oh, there's another branch, like big branch on the other side that you sort of have to mid-flight shimmy a different direction, or else you're gonna fall and trip on it. So clearing
That's
it is
right.
actually the way to go.
That's right.
Um, I'll get you out here on this last little bit, I know you've been doing some podcasts yourself, like through your brand and some, the other week you were releasing like training plans. If you want to touch on that real quick to help promote that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to co-host a podcast called East Coast Trail and Ultra Runners, which you can no longer find on the internet. My co-host took that down, got rid of all that, unfortunately. That was really funny and comical and had like a lot of tips. We had over 100 episodes, but so I kind of got burnt out on podcasts and been focusing on my business, but it's not consistent. I'm not coming up with one every week, but we've done about 15, 16 of them now. And it's the Bend Don't Break Running podcast. But moving forward, it's just going to be called the Run Bum podcast or something there sorts. We're updating our website, runbumtours.com, which is really Run Bum Races. I used to put on running tours. I may bring that back, but just that's our website. Yeah, it's cool. Like I started doing, I've interviewed a lot of, I would say, awesome, ultra running personalities and like historically significant people. Dink Taylor, who started Mountain Mist 50K, which is like, almost 30 years in now, who's an ultra running legend out of Alabama. Super nice, like one of the last Southern gentlemen. He's super cool. Janice Anderson, she started Georgia Ultra and Trail Running Society Guts, which I'm a member of, and they put on ultra running races out of the Atlanta area. People like that. But now we're kind of also every now and then we're throwing up like running tips and stuff like that because a lot of people have asked me for that. But I'm going to start. I used to do online coaching before I race directed. I stopped doing that because God bless all you online running coaches and stuff like that, and just coaches in general. Because man, it's so hard to create people training plans and then they don't do it, and then they ask you what to do next month. It's like just do what you were supposed to do last month. But no, all seriousness is, after running 300 plus ultras and running all over the world and coaching people, coaching high school cross country, I feel like also in designing all these courses, I want to give people the best possible way to finish races, to feel good. I've done everything wrong many times. Even when I knew what to do right, I did it wrong. And I have like these training guides that we're going to upload to the Run Bum website, runbumtours.com pretty soon. It's like how to run a 50K. Basically, that is, day before the race, morning of the race, during the race, after the race, day after. So like how to actually do it. Then I also have, which is going to be free. We have a free 20-week 50K program. So I'm going to put that out as well. And dude, it was like the floodgates opened. It's like 24 pages long, the 20-week plan. It's not just, hey, go do this, go do that. It explains everything about training, a little bit about nutrition, like training through hot weather, training at altitude, training for races at altitude, races that are going to be hot, like running in the heat, all sorts of stuff, man. And I'm really excited for that. So we're going to start doing that. And it's funny. So this is why people are hilarious. And, touche to you guys who comment on this. So we post like, hey, man, we have this free 50K plan. They're like, well, what about a 50-mile plan? What about 100 miles? Like, that's not good enough. We want it all. So we will have that. I laugh about this. We will have all that. But yeah, it's just kind of like a good rule of thumb. It's kind of like if you're training for a mountain race versus a flat race, like here's what you want to spend more time doing and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it helps people out. That's really what I want. It's just, I think you talked about it earlier is like, sharing race photos and your story with people. It's like, I started running because my mom shared that with me. I know I found out about ultra running, meeting and talking to other people, and then people posting about it on Facebook early on in the days, 15 years ago. And so I hope that, now that there's more races, there's more social media on it, there's more advertising, there's more all this stuff, right? More people doing it, that people share their stories, and that, say Dean's sharing his story. It's like maybe one of your friends that doesn't run sees that, or maybe they run a little bit and they're like, huh, I wonder what like a 50K is. Man, that sounds kind of hard. And it's like, a lot of people might be into things, but they just don't understand them. So I hope that we can explain what things are, how to do them, how to go about training for them, and how to not get injured while doing it, while also having a good time. So that's the point of the free training plans and advice. So there you go.
Well, I think it's going to work well because any information that anybody can provide that helps at least one person just makes everybody better and the community better. So,
For
um,
sure.
I think that's a good stopping point. I think we went over the little hour than we wanted to, but
No worries.
we kept it rolling. So again, thank you for coming on. And if
Yeah, man.
whoever listens to this, if you never ran a Run Bum Tour race, you need to 100% experience what it's all about. So
Yeah, man. Come on.
thank you again, Sean.